here a guide from Orat that you guys sent me. Massive Diablo Immortal end game familiar guys for PvP and PvE. Recommendations, strife info, as well more information. Let's go and watch this.
In today's video, we're going to take a deep dive into familiars, and this is probably the most extensive familiar guide up to date. What's so cool about this video is that it's actually a collaboration by a lot of members of my Discord server, and I'm super proud of the community and what they've been able to accomplish.
The familiars is always a pain.
I especially want to thank Way for putting this video together, and I'm very, very blown away by the results because we're going to take a deep dive into the main familiar. We're going to look at the best options both for PvE and for PvP when we talk about end game familiars, and we're also going to go through every single passive skill. Is it strifed? Is it not strifed? And so on. This is a massive video and a huge shout out to everyone who has been involved in it. Later on in this video, we will also pay tribute to those who have contributed to this and to make it happen. And before we start, let me also urge anyone who watches this video to join this great community. I'm going to link to the Discord server in the description of this video. Please feel free to join, bring your friends. There's a lot of knowledgeable people there. It's a great place to hang out if you're into the Diablo. But without further ado, let's get going, and I hand it over to you, Way.
Hello guys, this is Way. You might know me from my Reddit posts, Patch Notes, Way's Notes. I want to thank Arath for the chance to teach everyone what I've learned about creating endgame familiars over the past several months. Two recent improvements to the familiar system have made strong familiar—
Oh, wait. This guy speaks like way faster than Orat. So it doesn't work the 1.5.
easier and cheaper to make. The first was the ability to revert conversions, which guarantees that one cannot end up with a worse pet from a conversion. And the second is the introduction of powerful amalgam pets. My hope with this video is to encourage players to go beyond the basic savior pet and create familiars that are truly powerful. The plan for this video is to describe how to build several familiars, starting—
The only problem that I have is that as a free-to-play player, it's like really hard to get into this because it goes like very deep, and the resources that you're gonna have to put into it and the amount of plat, I don't think it really justifies for me as a free-to-play player or as a low spender. But you can take these maybe as a, a long-term guide, because the amount of like plat sync that you can have on this system, it is absolutely crazy for like very small increments. But whenever you are a huge whale, you are looking for like those 1%.
With the simplest savior pet and ending with powerful amalgam lingering wounds pets.
Okay.
Each successive familiar build will add an element of complexity to the conversion process. Hopefully by the time we discuss how to make endgame pets, the process won't seem so overwhelming. After we build our familiars, we'll talk about how to farm pet contracts, and an appendix describing every familiar skill will be provided. How much will all of this cost? Quite a bit, actually. Realistically, I would budget 200,000 platinum to make an endgame pet of the type we'll discuss near the end of this video.
Okay.
That's assuming that you patiently hunt for bargains in the market and farm the conversion stones you need. If you are impatient, the cost will be much higher. But if 200,000 platinum for an endgame pet is too much for you, then focus on the earlier cheaper builds to give you a good familiar that you can use right now. All of that said, let's get started. Familiars come with a dazzling array of passive skills to choose from, whose combinations can make truly unique familiars.
Way, I just want to save your pet.
Fine.
Facts.
Savior, which gives players the ability to cheat death and have 3.3 seconds of immunity.
This is the
obvious
main one.
Standout familiar passive skill.
I will say that if you are in the early game or you're free to play, pretty much literally the savior pet will be 90% of the usage for your game.
The first step in creating a savior pet is to use all of the pet contracts that you have to summon all of the normal familiars that you can. Then you'll want to look for so-called hidden legendaries. These are yellow rare familiars that have one or more attributes over 170. The odds of getting one are not good.
You mean not good like 1 out of 100?
I'd say more like 1 out of 1,000,000.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
So wait, is this like a video from Way or is this a video from Orat? I'm confused. So I know this is a collab, but it's going to be all Way?
The consensus is that a familiar with a legendary attribute over 170 will show up about 1% of the time, so don't worry if you don't get one right away. If you do find one, however, do not convert using that familiar or impact on it.
So basically what he's saying, if you get a pet that he has with one of the stats over 170, you should lock it.
In fact, lock it so that it doesn't get lost in a conversion. We'll use this familiar later.
Okay.
In our second stage, we're going to convert as many normal familiars as possible in order to collect as many aberrant familiars and conversion stones as possible. Our first goal in this stage is to collect aberrant familiars. 1 in 5 ordinary familiar conversions will result in the creation of an extra aberrant familiar. And we want them because they are the only kind of familiar that can get legendary passive skills like Savior. Whenever you get one, set it aside to use in the next stage.
Okay.
Our other goal in this stage is to use the resulting ordinary familiars to collect conversion stones. The rule of thumb is this. If the resulting familiar has 4 or more rare or better skills on it, or if it has any orange enhanced rare skills on it, press return and end pact to collect the conversion stones. The more rare or better skills on the familiar, the more stones you'll collect. Sadly, familiars with orange enhanced skills are actually bad for the player, because any further conversions using one is much less likely to result in a familiar with more rare skills. It's better to just end pact on any familiars with an...
Okay, so basically what he's saying is that if you see here, for example, this pet, if he has like 5 or more than 4 golden skills, you should actually end the pact so you get the conversion stones, because later on conversion stones will help you to maintain certain like legendary skills.
Orange enhanced rare skill, like the one shown in the bottom right. After collecting aberrant familiars and conversion stones, we're going to convert those aberrant familiars, hoping to get lucky and roll a savior skill. However, before we start, we want to create a legendary aberrant pet if possible.
Okay.
Converting with a legendary aberrant pet, one with over 170 points in any attribute, will increase the chances of getting more legendary skills in each conversion. If you were lucky in the previous stage and got an ordinary pet with a legendary attribute, you can go to Nissa and exchange the attributes of that familiar with any aberrant familiar of the same species. For example, I have an ordinary Skitterwhite with 178 insight. I'll now exchange attributes with a junk aberrant Skitterwhite, creating a legendary aberrant pet for my conversions. One can also buy a legendary pet off the market, but they tend to be expensive. Checking the market regularly may yield some bargains though, and remember that it doesn't matter.
Why did they exchange? Okay, I didn't get this part. Using a legendary aberrant pet will increase the chances of getting more legendaries in each conversion. Oh, okay. So I think what he did...
tend to be expensive versions. I'll now exchange attributes
so
with a junk aberrant
the first pet was not aberrant and the second was. Okay.
I'll now exchange attributes with a junk aberrant Skitterwhite, creating a legendary...
Okay, you see here.
Aberrant
he's
pet
gonna
for my
select...
conversions.
Yeah, he select the one that has is not aberrant,
can also buy
but he has really high skills. And then he picks this one that looks trash, but is aberrant. And because it's aberrant, we'll have 50% chances of, whenever you convert it, to get a legendary skill.
But they tend to be expensive. Checking the market regularly may yield some bargains though, and remember that it doesn't matter what species the familiar is or what attribute is over 170. But if creating or buying a legendary pet is out of reach for you, then using a rare or magical pet instead is fine. The odds of getting additional legendary skills and conversions will just be lower.
Yeah, it's like 30% to get a legendary skill, and if it is a... Okay, gotcha.
Now comes the fun part, the actual aberrant conversions. Use your legendary pet if you have one, and always use conversion stones. Conversion stones preserve...
Oh, no, wait. Legendary pets? Okay, the legendary pets has to do with the attributes. So if you have one attribute that is above 170, it's considered a legendary pet. Okay, gotcha. So if you have legendary attributes on your pet, you have an increased chance of getting legendary skills.
The odds of getting additional legendary skills and conversions will just be lower. Now comes the fun part, the actual aberrant conversions. Use your legendary pet if you have one, and always use conversion stones. Conversion stones preserve the attributes of...
So you convert your legendary pet with the 2 junk, and you use the conversion stones to keep the attributes of the highest quality input for the familiar. Guarantees that the new familiar will have at least 1 legendary skill, grants the new familiar to have at least the same number of legendary skills, and allows you to revert conversions if you get a bad one.
The best input pet, like your legendary familiar if you have one. They also guarantee that the new familiar will have at least 1 legendary skill. And they'll guarantee that the new familiar will have at least the same number of legendary skills as the input familiar with the most legendary skills. So if you have an input familiar with 3 legendary skills, for example,
you will
the
need
new
a lot
familiar
of
will have at
plats
least 3 legendary skills.
for
And
this.
finally, they'll let you revert
and
conversions
gambling.
if you get a bad one. You'll still lose the conversion stones and 2 input familiars, but you'll get your highest quality input familiar back. Let's see our first conversion.
All right, let's go.
This conversion
So he's
will
using the
involve a
legendary
Skitterwipe,
pet.
a Stormlost, and Emergent. The result will be one of those 3.
Okay, so he's using 1 legendary pet, and then he's using, because he has over 170, and then he's using 2 junk.
And I forgot to click on use conversion stones, and lost the legendary attribute because of it.
Oh no! Oh, so that's why you need. Oh my god. So he spent the plats, and because he didn't have the conversion stones, he actually lost the legendary.
The game even
Yikes.
warned me, but I was in too much of a hurry. I need a drink.
Oh my god.
Hours later.
Luckily, I had another legendary pet, a Brutalin with 192 insight. Using that in
Alright.
my conversions, making sure to use conversion stones, and reading any game warnings.
Okay, so he has here another legendary pet, 192, and then he's gonna use the conversion stones,
Led to a 2 legendary skill
and you see he's gonna probably he's using like
Mergent
good pets here.
with a 192 ferocity, Mergent's primary attribute. Two more conversions led to a 2 legendary skill Virag with 192 agility. If one continues in this way, the familiar will gain more legendary passive skills, and eventually Savior will appear.
Bro, how much conversion stones and plat he's using? Like he just keeps spamming.
Way, I want to dust.
One thing it doesn't say is that to get stones, we have to farm a lot of contracts. More after the steps do. Yeah, I mean, I have 600 contracts. I've been saving them for a while.
Prowler, save your pet.
Fine. Players tend to build defensively in PvP in order to survive long enough to retaliate, so it's no surprise that players have gravitated toward the Dust Prowler for a PvP pet. Dust Prowler shields the player for 240% damage and retaliates against attackers in melee range for 21% damage. By the way, the skill description that says it explodes for 240% damage when the shield expires is wrong. On the downside, Dust Prowlers can't effectively take advantage of damage-related familiar passive skills.
I think the
On the
Ash
other
Sweeper
hand,
is
there's another
better.
defensive familiar choice, the Ash Sweeper.
Yeah,
it casts
this
a
one is
debuff on
better.
an opponent that reduces the damage done to you by 20%. It also deals 115% damage at range and causes a knockback, and by doing so, it can take effective advantage of damage-related familiar skills. And finally, its amalgam form is even better than the Dust Prowler's amalgam form, which we'll discuss later. Understand that I'm not saying Dust Prowlers are bad pets. If you have a good one, stick with it. However, if you're starting from scratch today, I recommend
do
going
the
with an
Ash
Ash
Sweeper.
Sweeper over a Dust Prowler, and I think most players who are experts with familiars would as well. One thing that both Ash Sweepers and Dust Prowlers have in common is that they both have resilience as their primary attribute. This makes many defensive passive skills stronger. For example, having a pet with 200 resilience will shorten the cooldown time for Savior from 75 seconds to 60 seconds. Steelhide will add an extra 10% block chance. Blindside will add another 1.2 seconds of knockback immunity, and Guardian and Soul Shield will have their heals.
You gain an absorb shield equal to 42% of the active skill. And then you have also if the Guardian, familiar attach a Guardian status. Whenever your life drops below 50%, you immediately restore 5% of your maximum life.
Shields make more
Wow.
powerful. To change your familiar to a specific species, convert it with 2 junk familiars of the species that you want. For example, I'm now converting the Virag with 2 Ash Sweepers, and will have a 66% chance of getting an Ash Sweeper as a result.
All right.
I got it on my first try here, but if this process
my
fails
God.
for you, you can try it again until it succeeds.
Jeez, look at him.
After you get the species that you want, keep converting with familiars of that same species. I converted 4 more times in the hope of getting lucky and getting Savior, and this first conversion was actually a big moment because it added a 3rd legendary skill.
Bro, he already has 3 legendary skills as well as resilience almost at the top. So all he needs is to actually get the right legendary skills. So this is done. And also he has here on the legendary attributes, I think this damage taken reduce to players.
The conversion stone cost jumps from 8 per conversion for a 2 legendary skill pet to 30 for a 3 legendary skill pet. But having more legendary skills also means a better chance of getting the skill you want, so it means having to do fewer.
But also means that you need more conversion stones, because look at here, he's not saying, but he's using around like 30 conversion stones.
Or
Look at here.
pets. Sadly, I wasn't able to succeed in getting Savior for this video.
30 conversion stones. This means like you have to end so many contracts, which is crazy.
But if we were to keep converting in this way, we would get more legendary skills, and Savior would pop up eventually.
What the heck are amalgam pets?
Amalgam familiars have enhanced versions of their familiar active skills. Skitter Whites now burn their enemies, Brute Talons now shoot frickin' laser beams, and Ash Sweepers now cast an area of effect that can debuff and knock back whole groups of mobs and players.
Wait, what? The Ash Sweeper is the Spectral Rain, which is gonna create an
Talons
area.
now
Look
shoot
at this.
frickin' laser beams.
Creates an area that will actually knock back the players that are here. Wow.
And Ash Sweepers now cast an area of effect that can debuff and knock back whole groups of mobs and players.
That's kind of crazy.
Many of the new skills have
And
a lower
does damage
cooldown
reduction.
duration, and some add extra crowd control effects.
Okay, these other ones, I don't think like nobody cares.
Unfortunately, there's no Amalgam Bramblestalker yet. The process for making an amalgam is exactly the same as the process we use to try to make a Savior Ash Sweeper. Just convert your pet with familiars of the species that you want. Each conversion has a chance to create an amalgam.
Okay, so it's just
Chances
gambling.
of getting an amalgam from a conversion depends on the number of legendary skills on the resulting familiar. As you
Okay.
can see in the first two columns, amalgamation will rarely occur for familiars with 0 or 1 legendary skills, but it will happen 15% of the time for familiars with 3 or more legendary skills. In the last 3
Oh.
columns, you can see how many conversions it would take to have a 50.
So look at this. This breakdown is crazy. So if you have 0 legendary skills on your pet, is like 0.5, 1 is 2%, 2 is 10%. But if you have a legendary pet with the 3 legendary skills or more, is 15%. Wow.
50% chance of getting an amalgam, and the associated costs in terms of conversion stones and input familiars. In the
This guy
process of
put in
trying
a
to
lot
get
of
Savior
work.
pets, I
Congratulations
converted 2
to-
legendary skill
to this
pets
guy,
4
man.
times,
To Wei.
and 3 legendary skill pets 4 times. I had a combined 66% chance of getting an amalgam at some point in that process, but was mildly unlucky. But there's a sweet spot for creating amalgam familiars as cheaply as possible, converting 2 legendary skill pets. These conversions have a 10% chance of success, while only costing 8 conversion stones each. If you want to create an amalgam, I recommend that you create or buy a familiar of the species that you want that has 2 legendary skills. Then convert it over and over with junk familiars of the same species. If the resulting familiar has 3 or more legendary skills, revert the conversion back to the 2 legendary skill version, and continue until you get an amalgam pet. And so that's what I did. I was running out of conversion stones, so I bought a cheap Ash Sweeper with 2 legendary skills from the market, and exchanged attributes with my existing legendary Ash Sweeper. I figured I had enough conversion stones for 5 more tries to get an amalgam pet. And this time I got it on my first try. Notice the difference in the icons for the active skills, and also the purple swirl
it.
icon in the row of the familiar traits.
Gee, boys. After $2,000, boys, you got his amalgamated pet.
And that's how you make an amalgam pet. There's one final advantage I want to discuss regarding amalgam pets. Conversions with amalgam pets always result in an amalgam pet of the same species no matter what the other 2 input familiars are. This advantage makes it much easier and cheaper to try to target specific passive skills, as we'll see when we discuss.
Okay, conversion with amalgamated pets will always result in an amalgamated pet from the same species, no matter whatever you put. Okay, so what it means is that until now, you always needed to be running. If you're trying to get the Ash Sweeper on the conversion, you needed to always have 2 other Ash Sweepers, so you have the guarantee. But with amalgamated pets, you can actually run whatever the pets you want and do the conversion. So, okay.
Endgame builds.
What's the best PvE pet?
In PvE, the most powerful and most important
All
familiar
about
skill
lingering
is
wounds,
Lingering
boys.
Wounds, and nothing else comes close. If the familiar has 200 insight, Lingering Wounds will provide an armor break that increases damage dealt to the target by 38.8%. That not only increases the damage you deal, but also the damage that everyone in your party and raid deals by 38.8%. If that sounds overpowered, that's because it is. And it should be noted that Lingering Wounds' 3-second duration can be extended by potency,
OP, man.
2-piece Barons, and Misery Elixir.
So, okay, so I also want to mention here something, because like some people, like they buy and maybe they don't fully understand like the math in the game, but they get like their Lingering on pet and they get 30%. And imagine if they were doing like 100, like a billion damage, and then they get the Lingering on pets, you're not gonna do 1.38 8. Okay, that's not how really how it's gonna. Your damage is gonna definitely be increased, but not exactly. Your total damage is gonna be increased by 38%. Okay,
over 6 seconds.
Because there
So
are
the
like
best
multiple
PvE
damage
familiars
buckets.
will be ones that have Insight as their primary attribute, have low cooldown durations, and are able to deliver lingering wounds. And the only 2 familiar types that fit these descriptions are Amalgam
The Brawl
Skitterwights
Stalker
and
was
Brute Talons.
the latest one.
Well, actually, Amalgam Brute Talons have a problem. Their default laser beam attacks do not come with a status effect.
So this is why this guy. Okay, so you can make a Brand Talon amalgamated, but you need to have like some purification. It's like fired or something. Like you will also leave dots because the base skill of the amalgamated one, it will not work.
So it doesn't have a way to trigger lingering wounds. In order to get a Brute Talon to work, we're going to have to modify its active skill with passive skills. The clear best in slot.
Oh yeah, purification flame. There it is. So you need to have these on this pet, otherwise the lingering wounds will not happen.
PvE familiar is the Amalgam Brute Talon with Purification Flame, Lingering Wounds, and Tenacity. Purification Flame, a legendary skill that can only appear on Brute Talons, changes the Brute Talon's active skill into a burning aura centered on the player. This is great for players who regularly fight mobs in melee range. Also, since both Purification Flame and Tenacity reduces the active skill's cooldown, this combination has the shortest cooldown duration at 8.4 seconds. Unfortunately, this build is bad for ranged players who tend to avoid getting close to mobs. Also, it requires getting Purification
like
Flame,
bad for
a difficult to
Necromancers,
obtain
for
third
example.
legendary skill, which means it will require many more conversions to get.
Or the Demon Hunters.
The second best PvE familiar is the Amalgam Skitterwight with Lingering Wounds and Tenacity. It's much cheaper and easier to build since it requires only 2 easy-to-obtain legendary skills. It's also good for both.
But I mean, like in PvE, honestly, like Necromancer, you're gonna go melee. So unless you're your range class, you probably should not build that one. You should build this one.
Ranged and melee characters. Its cooldown duration is 1.5 seconds longer than the ranked number 1 pet, but the cooldown time of 9.9 seconds is still excellent. If your Lingering Wounds lasts over 5 seconds, you'll still have it up for half the time, and if there are multiple Lingering Wounds pets in a raid, that means the raid can probably have 100% Lingering Wounds coverage. This build is the one that I use and is the one that I would recommend to most players. It's easy to make and leaves open a third slot for another skill such as Soul Shield or Guardian.
Way approved.
The third best PvE familiar, I'm just including for completeness sake, in case all you want is a dragon shooting a freaking laser beam. It's a Brute Talon with Ignition, Lingering Wounds, and Tenacity. Ignition provides a burn status effect that allows the Brute Talon laser beam to carry lingering wounds. However, other than the cool factor, the build is in every way equal to or worse than the first 2 builds. Its cooldown duration is the
By the
same
way,
as the
this is
Skitterwight,
very
but it requires
endgame
a
stuff,
third legendary
okay?
skill, and its attack is a directed beam rather than an area of effect attack of the Skitterwight.
If you are at the start of the game, this doesn't really apply to you, and it probably also doesn't apply to you if you're like a free-to-play or a low spend that is early on in the game, okay? If only, like, this is like the mid max. You probably, if you're gonna spend plat, your plat will be much better spent, you know, like in your secondary gems, in your legendary gems. You're gonna get, on like, try to mid-max your reforges. You're gonna get more value than trying to go like for this crazy mid-max, because most likely, as long as you have a Brand Talon already with a legendary, you know, Lingering Wounds, you're probably gonna be fine, man.
Embrace the firebug, I say, but if all you want is the dragon shooting laser beams, well, here you go. And here's how to build an endgame PvE familiar. Step 1. Create an amalgam of the species you want to use. See the previous section titled Amalgam Pets for details. Step 2. Convert the amalgam with any cheap aberrant pets of any type to get the amalgam to 5 legendary skills. Having your amalgam have an attribute over 170 will make this process faster, as it will make the odds of getting more legendary skills easier. Note, you might be able to get away with just 4 legendary skills if you're going to make this Skitterwight. Step 3. Then convert it with cheap pets that have Lingering Wounds and Tenacity on them, while avoiding as many other overlapping skills.
Okay.
I'm now going to demonstrate step 3.
Okay, so one thing, does he need to be legendary Lingering Wounds and Tenacity, or it just needs to be Tenacity and Lingering Wounds? Probably it can be also like the normal versions, I will assume.
Many other overlapping skills. I'm now going to demonstrate step 3, how to get specific skills onto...
I will 100% never use this information. No, but I mean, like, if you play this game for many years, even as a free to play, maybe you're gonna reach to a point that this also is gonna be useful for you, right? But this is like mainly for spenders, right? That are like already trying to min max everything about it.
Amalgam pets.
And knowledge is never bad.
And for the sake of this demonstration, let's pretend that I have already converted it enough times that it has 5 legendary skills. By the way, if anyone is willing to start a platinum and pet contract GoFundMe campaign for me, I would very much appreciate it. For this demonstration, I want to get Lingering Wounds and Tenacity on my Brute Talon. To do this, I bought 10 cheap familiars with Lingering Wounds and Tenacity from the market.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So this makes sense. So you don't need to be with legendary. You can put, as long as he has Lingering Wounds and Tenacity, you're gonna be able to have the chance of slotting these 2 skills into the legendary.
I'm now going to convert my Brute Talon with 2 of them. By clicking on the button next to convert, we can see what skills each familiar has. The highlighted ones are skills that the familiars have in common. If 2 of the input familiars have the same skill of any quality, then the odds of the skill appearing on the resulting familiar will be 40%.
Okay.
If all 3 familiars...
Wait. Okay, so if you have on 2 pets, the chances of appearing on your next pet will be 40%. Jesus Christ.
Players have the same skill, the odds of it appearing
and you have to use 30 conversion
on
stones,
the resulting
by the way.
familiar rises to 80%. In this case, 2 input familiars have Lingering Wounds and Tenacity, so there's a 40% chance for each of them to show up on the resulting familiar, as you can see in the chart on the right. However, there are 4 other skills that we don't want that overlap and also have a 40% chance of appearing: Affliction, Siphon, Precision, and Blindside. Those extra overlapping skills could take away slots that could go to Lingering Wounds and Tenacity. We need to find a different combination of familiars that has fewer unwanted overlapping skills.
Okay.
Here we'll replace the Skitterwhite with a second Quick Strider. There's 1 fewer unwanted overlapping skill, but there are still 2.
So you okay, I got it. So oh my god, this goes so deep. It goes as deep as I go with your mom. So basically, you want to make it in a way that you don't have you want the least amount of overlapping skills. In an ideal world, you should only have 2. Like you just want to have the Lingering Wounds and Tenacity overlapping.
Many, as we can see in the list on the right. After a lot of trial and error, I finally landed on this combination that only has 1 unwanted overlapping skill.
Yeah.
I pressed convert and you can see that Tenacity showed up on the resulting familiar, but Lingering Wounds did not. Also note that even though I used a...
Bro, oh my god, this is painful, and he still lost. So, he made it... oh my god, chat, he made it like this, and he still lost. Oh my god. That's painful.
I pressed convert and you can see that Tenacity showed up on the resulting familiar, but Lingering Wounds did not. Also note that even though I used a Stormlost and Dust Prowler as input pets, the result was still an Amalgam Brute Talon. That's one of the key benefits of using an Amalgam pet in conversions. The resulting familiar will always be an amalgam of the same species.
Yeah, that's the good part, boys.
I wanted to convert again.
Once you get to the fire,
this combination with only
the
2
laser dragon
skills.
is never gonna
Notice
go away.
that since all 3 familiars have Tenacity, there will be an 80% chance of the resulting familiar having Tenacity.
Okay, so now if you have all the 3 pets with the Tenacity, it will give you 80%. And like, why is like 80%? Why is it not like 100%? Like, you have 3 pets. Why not give like the 100%? Like, you just like literally want a scam. You're trying to make the game more complicated, and you're trying to scam players. Obviously. Can you play this game for free? Yes, I play it for free.
But since only 2 familiars have Lingering Wounds, there's only a 40% chance of the resulting familiar having Lingering Wounds. After the conversion, the resulting familiar does indeed have both Tenacity and Lingering Wounds. And if the pet had 5 or more legendary skills, there would have been a better chance that they would have both been legendary. Post-production way here with a late-breaking addendum. Some recent testing hints that there was a reason why neither Lingering Wounds nor Tenacity were legendaries in the example. There's evidence to suggest that in order to get the 40% or 80% bonus chance to appear to result in a legendary skill, at least one of the input familiars has to have that legendary skill.
Okay, So, because you were saying before that you could use any quality of the skill, but here it shows that you can, but you're just gonna have lower chances. So ideally, you want to have at least legendary and as well, like here, a golden one or triple golden. Oh my god.
Skill. For example, if 2 input familiars have rare lingering wounds, then there will be a 40% chance of lingering wounds appearing, but only as a rare skill. If one of them had a legendary lingering wounds instead, it would still show up at 40% of the time, but could be legendary. This testing is still in its infancy, but the results are compelling enough that I felt that I should let you know about it. We will continue to test this and we'll make a separate video when we have more concrete results. However, I don't think any of the advice in the rest of this video will be affected, since it makes the assumption that you have the basic cheaper legendary skills already on your familiar. And if I wanted to go further and roll for Purification Flame, I could keep going with another conversion. This time with both Tenacity and Lingering Wounds, each having an 80% chance of showing up on resulting familiar. But he doesn't have
conversion stones now.
And then I could just hope that Purification Flame appears on one of the other legendary skill slots. And what if I get a bad roll and lose one of the skills? I can always revert the conversion and get my original familiar back. As another example, let's take my Amalgam Skitterwhite that already has legendary Lingering Wounds and Tenacity. Let's say also that in addition to these skills, I also want Guardian. I would convert using cheap Tenacity and Lingering Wounds pets, and hope Guardian shows up on one of the other 3 legendary skill slots. Note that if I were to do this in reality, I would probably search the marketplace for input familiars with fewer unwanted overlapping skills first. And speaking of Guardian, let's talk about other useful skills one can target for your PvE familiar. The temptation is to go back to the...
Bro, Savior, I think Savior, even in PvE... Listen, chat, I have my Lingering on pets. You guys know, I got Tony. But I have to be honest, man. 90% of the times, if I'm doing challenge dungeons, I am running with my PvP pet. Like, it doesn't, like, really matter, man. Like, the peace of mind that... If I make a mistake and I get one-shotted by the boss and I don't die, it's just too good.
The old standby Savior.
Is
that really the best option? When Savior triggers, it shuts down your familiar for 75 seconds. That's 75 seconds when your entire party or raid isn't doing 38.8% more damage, and you aren't benefiting from any other familiar skills.
Yeah, but it doesn't like really matter, man. Like everything just dies like so quickly nowadays in this game. Like unless you're trying to meet max for the gauntlet content or something. Like challenge dungeons, like you're just gonna blast through it.
Contrast that with Soul Shield and Siphon that provide a shield or heal based on a percentage of the
it's worth enough for peace of mind that you can literally be spamming dungeons and watching like a live stream or like a video or a TV show while you're not getting bored by doing dungeons.
Damage that the familiar deals. Observe the size of the shield created by my Skitterwhite Soul Shield.
Alright, that's a big boy. Oh my god.
That's just against a single target.
Jeez,
now watch what happens when the Skitterwhite hits multiple enemies. If my Skitterwhite had both Soul Shield and Siphon, I'm not sure if I'd ever die in PvE challenges.
Alright.
Now let's look at Guardian. Whenever your familiar casts its active skill, a Guardian buff gets placed on you. When your health dips below 50%,
that's also pretty powerful. That's a good combination right there.
Maximum health. That might sound
gladly is another combination that I'll never have.
Useful but not overpowered until you realize the implications. If you suddenly get one-shot by a gauntlet or raid boss, your life will go to 0, but then you'll immediately heal via Guardian. Basically, Guardian will act as a cheat death against heavy boss attacks. Now granted, Guardian doesn't give any damage immunity, so if you're standing in a poison fog or are being pelted by many small projectiles, Guardian won't provide much help beyond its heal. But it will provide protection against sudden, overwhelming attacks, do this every 10 seconds, and won't disable your familiar in the process. And this becomes a theme. The better your familiar is, the less valuable Savior becomes. It might be better to have other defensive skills like Soul Shield, Siphon, and Guardian, and not let yourself get to 0% life in the first place. And it might be better to resurrect and have a fully functioning familiar at your disposal.
Yeah, I see his point. What's
the best PvP pet?
PvP pets are a completely different kettle of fish from their PvE counterparts due to the effects
This is the
of
PvP segment, chat.
For example, remember how huge the Soul Shield got against the Overwill training dummy?
I'll personally say that obviously, you can be a PvP or a PvEer, but I think that 100% focusing your pet for PvP is probably going to be worth it in the long term than actually your PvE pet. We are really, really strong already for PvE, and I think you're going to get more return of your investment on your pet if you just focus on the PvP one.
Well, here's that same Skitter White with Soul Shield in the Battlegrounds training
But
area,
if you reach, you
where
can have
damage is
votes.
greatly reduced. Soul Shield has gone from being a godly, nearly OP skill to one that is almost useless. Being completely honest, I think the developers have been reluctant to allow familiars to become too powerful in PvP out of fear about how much they could unbalance PvP matches. The best defensive PvP familiar is the Amalgam Ash Sweeper with Savior and Guardian. The Amalgam Ash Sweeper's attack is an area of effect that can damage, debuff, and knock back multiple enemies at
that
once.
skill is crazy.
For example, in a scrum on an idol. What's more, any enemies who enter the zone during its 3-second duration will also be affected.
That's
in addition, if the
insane.
familiar has 200 resilience, Guardian will heal for 10 to 16% of your maximum life when your life gets below 50%, since Guardian is not affected by Strife.
Wow.
Unfortunately, the Amalgam Ash Sweeper's cooldown duration is still 20 seconds. The second best defensive familiar is the Dust Prowler with Savior and Guardian. This can be a normal or Amalgam Dust Prowler, as we'll see. Dust Prowlers provide a shield, and the Amalgam version will chill attackers in melee range. What's more, Guardian is not affected by Strife, and will heal 10 to 16% of your maximum life. However, Amalgam Dust Prowlers have some drawbacks. They actually have a smaller shield than normal Dust Prowlers, 200% damage instead of 240%.
Yeah, I heard that the normal one was better. Like it was a better cat.
The retaliation damage has also been reduced from 21% damage to 10% damage. It's believed that the developers had planned to reduce the cooldown
Yo,
on
what's up,
Amalgam Dust
Hunt?
Prowlers and reduce the shield and damage accordingly, but then changed their minds and kept the cooldown at 20 seconds. In addition to Savior and Guardian,
So the cat. Okay, here's the thing. As you get like to a place, 20% damage reduction will be better than having a shield. That's the reason why. And also you have the knockback and all of these things. That's why, in my opinion, the Ash Sweeper is better.
there are some other useful skills for
I didn't
defensive
even. That was already my opinion even before I watched this.
PvP.
I actually didn't know that the amalgamated version of the Ash Sweeper was actually that crazy. Like 3 seconds area of effect in the middle of the idol with damage reduction by 20%. That's crazy.
familiars. If the familiar has 200 resilience, Steelhide will
You have an
provide an
augmented
increased block
Varog? I just had an augmented super chat. Thank you so much.
chance of 14% for 3
Does anyone
seconds
wants to-
that cannot be extended.
Chat, I should actually make a GoFundMe page so I can have my best PvE and PvP pet. Chat, should I do that? GoFundMe page for my amalgamated PvE and PvP pet? I think like probably chat like $5,000 should be fine.
Concuss will stun enemies for half a second and can be applied multiple times. And yes, the Dust Prowler's shield retaliation attacks can carry Concuss. Tenacity will reduce the active skill cooldown duration to 16.5 seconds for both Ash Sweepers and Dust Prowlers. Finally, a Strife Lingering Wounds will increase damage dealt to enemies by 9%. Lingering Wounds can be carried by both Amalgam Ash Sweepers and Dust Prowlers, but not by normal Dust Prowlers. But there's also a fun offensive PvP familiar, the Amalgam Varog with Forest's Rage.
The issue like with the manhunt is that it is the damage of the skill of the pet. It's not you. It doesn't increase 30% of your damage. Increase 30% of the damage of the pet. So usually you want to have stuff that it is going to boost you or be like CC or damage reduction debuffs, things like that.
Tenacity and Savior. This familiar has the shortest possible cooldown time of 7.5 seconds
Oh,
if it
yeah,
has 200
Varog.
agility. In addition, Forest Rage will knock off an enemy's shield or damage reduction buff and hit the target 6 times with an attack that follows the enemy.
Varog will be crazy if... Wait, does this remove like a 9 rage and conjuration of light? Can you imagine if he did that? Oh, that'll be too OP. Like, I don't think it does.
The downside is that getting Forest Rage and Savior to show up on the same pet will be difficult and require many conversions. In addition to Forest Rage, Tenacity, and Savior, there are some other skills that could be useful on a Varog. Concuss will stun enemies for half a second, and since Forest Rage will hit the enemy 6 times, there will be chances for them to get stunned multiple times. Steelhide will increase your block chance by a strifed 10.2% for 3 seconds. That's 3 seconds out of 7.4 seconds, which isn't bad. And finally, if you're a whale,
Steelhide
you
is
can
really
also
good
try
for
for
tanks.
Force Rage 2, which will reduce the enemy's primary attack damage. Or Forced Rage 3 that will let you actually steal your enemy's shields and damage reduction buffs.
Bro, this one is kind of crazy though. Steals the shields and the defensive buffs from the enemies. I mean, the Rage 2, it's okay because it's a primary attack damage. And most people are using skills nowadays.
Personally, I would convert with familiars having tenacity and concuss, and hope to get Forced Rage 1 and Savior, and then once they appear, call it a day. Lastly, I feel like I have to explain why I didn't mention Innervate, which gives a chance of resetting a player's skill cooldowns, a Barbarian's Undying Rage for example. Listen to anyone with a familiar with Innervate, and they'll inevitably tell you it goes off more than you'd expect, and it often appears as a key skill in familiar guides. However, it became affected by Strife in September 2025, and I think many people haven't adjusted. I no longer think that it is a strong skill to target. If you disagree though, go to the NPC in the Training Dummies area, enter the Battlegrounds training ground, create a test dummy, and then count how many times the familiar attacks and how many times Innervate triggers. If Innervate triggers more than 1 in 4 times, leave a comment below with your exact familiar build so we can test it.
Alright.
Lastly, I have a message for the game developers in case...
So basically that just resets one of your skills that is in cooldown. And it was very useful for a lot of skills. Like you have, for example, Monk tanks also take a lot of advantage. Crusaders as well. You have the Barbarian.
Anyone from Blizzard or NetEase watches this video. The stable of viable PvP familiar builds is surprisingly thin. I understand if you're worried about familiars getting too powerful in PvP, such that it unbalances the game. However, there is a middle ground that would allow familiars to be more impactful in PvP without making such familiars only accessible to the largest whales. First, all Amalgam familiars should have a default active skill cooldown of 12 seconds. Second, introduce one specialized passive PvP-related skill, like the Varog's Forced Rage for each familiar species. Finally, give some love to Mergens, Quake Striders, and Stormloss, which have the potential to be great PvP pets, but their cooldowns are too long, and their Amalgam abilities are underwhelming.
And that's the problem of you having a PvP and PvE pet. PvE and PvP content in the same game. Like one, if it becomes too powerful in PvP, it's gonna get nerfed. Will also affect the PvE and vice versa.
Now let's talk about the craziness that is farming pet contracts. Because if you've never heard of this before, it will sound crazy. But I assure you that it's backed up with extensive data.
It's a golden hour.
I tried farming pet contracts in the Accursed Towers and open world for 3 weeks without success. When I complained about it on the official DI Discord, user Lammy201 reminded me of the study VK and a group of players conducted more than a year ago. They found
on
that
the 0 to 5 minutes or something like that.
Contracts only dropped from elite mobs in the first 5 minutes of each half hour. 2. The first 6 contracts in a week come easily, but contracts become harder to get after that until one reaches a hard cap at 10 contracts per week. VK's original video is linked in the description. Months of my own farming confirms that this is still true with one big change. Contracts do not seem to drop from blue or yellow elites anymore. They only seem to drop from ancient elites or bosses.
What? So now they only drop... Ancient elites are the orange ones. And bosses. Okay. So basically what is he saying, at the start of the hour, from the 0 minutes until the 5, you're going to be able to get it. And from 30 minutes to 35 minutes, you're also going to be able to get it. They drop. And it seems that now it is changed to actually just drops out of like the orange mobs. And you're still capped 10 contracts per week, but the first 6, they will come easy. Also remember that you can go to Nisa in West March and you can buy 3 per week.
The best way I've found to farm pet contracts is to enter the Abyssal Verge alone 1 minute before any half-hour mark, on the hour or on the half-hour.
And you search for the... Okay, this is very smart.
And wait for the server clock to strike the half-hour. Kill the Ancient Elite, and continue hunting Ancient Elites until the 5 minutes are up. You may need to exit and start a second Verge instance. Why do contract drops work this way? Lammy201 had the best theory I've ever heard. We think that every half hour, the server generates a certain number of pet contracts to drop, perhaps based on the population of active players on the server at the time. By killing an Ancient Elite or boss, there's a chance to get one of those contracts to drop for you. Once the contract stockpile is used up, no more pet contracts will drop for anyone on the server until the next half-hour mark. So this mechanism is a way to control the number of pet contracts that can appear on a server.
TLDR, this is just probably very old hard coding inside the game, basically.
If you felt overwhelmed and unsure of what to do, follow these steps. Get it familiar with Savior on it to use in PvP. It'd be even better if it's an Ash Sweeper or Dust Prowler, but that isn't required. After that, work on creating an Amalgam Skitterwhite with Lingering Wounds and Tenacity to use in PvE. And then finally, work on getting a fancier endgame PvP pet. This video focused on building companion pets. If you want information about how to improve your bonded pets traits, see Aroth's excellent video on the subject linked below. I want to especially thank Wolf on the Aroth Discord server, who did a ton of testing and video collection. Lammy201, who brought me off the ledge when it came to farming pet contracts, and Kulslowski, who provided great expertise when it came to build suggestions.
This was nice.
I also want to thank Niexa, Bure, Steve Mutter, Sir Bike, Bland, Wolf with a U, and Selenum, who gave great feedback on earlier draft versions of this video. The final part of this video will be the appendix, where I will explain what every familiar legendary skill does and how they are affected by Strife.
It is
Thanks again
a
to
really
Wolf, who
good
did all of
guide.
the Strife testing.
This will affect this, like, if you are a player that are just looking for knowledge, like, these will literally get you covered.
Following skills are empowered by Ferocity. Manhunt increases pet damage by 30 to 40% against players. It's not Strife beyond the normal PvP damage reduction.
So you see here, it increases your pet damage against players. It's not Strife beyond the normal PvP damage reduction.
Razor Claws increases pet skill damage by 20 to 27%.
A lot of people, they think that it's like their own damage, but it's not.
It's not Strife beyond normal PvP damage reduction. Precision increases the pet's critical hit chance by 20 to 27%. It's not Strife beyond the normal PvP damage reduction. Savage Blows increases the critical hit damage of the familiar's active skill by 80 to 107%. It's not Strife beyond the normal PvP damage reduction. Concuss stuns an enemy for 1 to 1.3 seconds. The duration is halved in PvP. Relentless Strikes gives a 25 to 33% chance for the pet to double cast. It's not affected by Strife. The following skills are empowered by Agility. Lobber increases the...
Okay, now they are just gonna go like through all the skills, which you guys can definitely go and check it out. What a great video! What a great video, guys! I will highly recommend you guys. Like, Way put a tremendous amount of work on this one. Does he has a YouTube channel, man? I would love to actually give him a big shout out, because this video is on Orat's channel, but this is actually like literally just Way hardcore carrying. Such a great video. What a great video. I will definitely drop a like, and I'm gonna put here W Way. Great video, man. W freaking Way. All right, chat. If you guys want to go there and check it out, I'll just drop a like also on Orat's as well. If Way has a YouTube channel, let me know. What a great video. So, boys, this was the familiar guide, extensive ultimate best 2026 ultimate guide for the Diablo Immortal. What a big shout out to Way. He put a lot of effort in, all the people that were around, like, to create like these huge guides. So big shout out. Also, don't forget to drop the like and the sub on this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.